What the fuck was that ending? Listen, Harrison, how the fuck do you think killing your father is gonna make you normal? In fact, it'll probably do the opposite. You know why? Because killing your father isn't something normal people do. The actor who played Harrison did a pretty good job with what he was given, but Harrison was just a really poorly done character. Like, we're supposed to relate to him. Didn't he, like, fuck up Ethan's life? I know Ethan was fucking weird, but he still fucked his life up and we're supposed to, like, side with this guy? I don't know, man. And also, who the fuck is this guy, bro? Like, what the fuck? What was the point of him? That's all I'm gonna say on New Blood, man, because I've tried filming this video 3 times and every time I go on, like, a rant about New Blood. But if you're curious about my thoughts on New Blood, you should definitely check out Bynum Entertainment's video on it. Pretty much summed up exactly how I feel. And he's honestly a really cool guy. Really dope content, too. Yeah, I think he's gonna go places, so definitely check him out before he blows up. You gotta make sure you're the OGs. And I'm pretty sure he's doing a reaction video to this, so I just want to say I appreciate that, man, and hope you like my take. Over the years, I wrote my own ending to the show, and the initial plan was to have this great resume of films and then present my Dexter take to some executives. So let's just pretend that I have that resume and that you guys are the executives. Now, I put a lot of research into this, but I'm not going to go super in depth because I made this video like 3 times already, and they're like over like 3 hours long of me just like being so amused by my own bullshit that I made up. In the promotion leading up to the release, I would have YouTubers promote it. I would have true crime content creators make in-universe videos about the cases and killers from the show and present them like it happened in real life. I don't know, I just thought that'd be like a fun way to promote the show. And in this version, it wouldn't be called Dexter Returns or Dexter Season 9. It is a continuation of a story, but I kind of want it to be a bit of a fresh start. So I would name it The Bay Harbor Butcher. So let's get into it. The Bay Harbor Butcher takes place 10 years after the Season 8 ending, December 2022. Dexter resides in Portland, Oregon, which is where I'm from, and I live nearby, so I have a little bit of insight. The dark blue night sky drenches the cabin in mystery, the same cabin from the last shot of Dexter. Cut to inside, the television is on. You hear a news report of a trash bag with human remains found in Delaware. The TV turns off. Cut to a close-up of Dexter with long hair and a beard sitting on the couch. A one-take shot as the camera moves back to reveal Deborah on his side. They start talking, and then the camera moves back again as you hear someone say, "Hey, can y'all shut the fuck up and let me sleep?" And it's Dokes. Then you hear Brian Moser say, "I agree, kinda hard to hear the television over you guys." Then finally the first cut. Dexter is alone on the couch. He's isolated and it's killing him, creating figments of his imagination just to fill the void of emptiness. Deborah is the Harry of the season. She's Dexter's voice, whereas Dokes and Brian are just there to keep him company. Then you see someone we haven't seen before, a whole new location. The camera's on the ceiling facing down. You see a body on the table and a man in scrubs working on the body. The camera stays on the man as it moves down and pans up to reveal Jeffrey Naples, who's played by Cillian Murphy. Once Jeffrey is shown, he lifts something from the table. It's a face from that body, and there he is, smiling at his new trophy. At work, Dexter has one friend, whose name is Joseph Roberts, who's played by Alfred Molina. Don't ask why, but I've always wanted to work with him ever since I saw Spider-Man 2. Mike Singleton is Dexter's new alias, but I'm just calling him Dexter to avoid any confusion. Dexter and Joseph are on their lunch break when some of their co-workers start talking about a victim from 2 weeks ago and how they suspect there's bound to be another body soon. That's pretty much why Dexter's always watching the news, because he's following this case. The victim MO is a brunette, brown-eyed, Caucasian 16-year-old girl who's a runaway. The method of killing consists of the victim's throat being sliced, laid out in a public place with the victim's face, just the skin, cut off, and a picture stapled to their stomach. The picture shows a plastic doll wearing the face of the victim, which leads the media to call this killer the doll maker. Or it's kind of a tie between the doll maker and the doll face killer, but don't know. Let me know which one you guys like better in the comments. And I know you're probably thinking, yo, what the fuck is wrong with this kid? I watched a lot of Mr. Ballin, Twisted Minds, disturbing animated stories, and all that stuff. I just thought to myself, what would be something that's really evil, disturbing, and a bit unique? I just wanted a really evil character to bring back Dexter. And it works because Dexter starts to light up when hearing about this killer. Almost like a lion watching his prey. Joseph asks Dexter to come over to his nephew's housewarming party. It'll be Saturday night and Joseph doesn't want to be the only older person there. Dexter agrees without hesitation and then he gets back to work. He sees the chainsaw and the sound of wood being cut brings back flashbacks to his mother's death. He punishes himself for running away by reliving the moment that changed him every single day. The workday is over and he goes home. The audience sees that he sleeps on the couch instead of his room. Dokes and Brian talk to him about just facing her, but Dexter can't. Every time he sleeps in that room, he gets sleep paralysis and he sees a woman standing over his bed while he's paralyzed. The person he sees is Deborah, the real Deborah, who shows up in her hospital gown as well as looking lifeless and wet. He has PTSD from her death and can't bring himself to face the real Deborah for everything he did to her. To forget about the room, his mind starts replaying what he heard from his coworkers, which prompts him to go to his closet where he opens a false bottom. He pulls out a wooden box, a trophy box. He grabs a beer and goes to the patio. He opens it and is filled with slides that are empty. And there he is getting drunk, staring at a box of trophies, remembering his old ways, thinking maybe he can still satisfy his violent needs, especially since the doll maker is out there and is a child killer, which just infuriates Dexter even more. He realizes this is going to be a challenge since he's got no resources and no way to really find out who the killer is. That won't stop Dexter though, because for the first time in 10 years, he's back on the hunt. Introducing a new character. The camera follows behind a man while others are talking to him about how they've gone public and that their findings have gone number 5 trending on social media. The man stops to talk some more and the camera slowly reveals the man, Elijah Willard, who's played by Giancarlo Esposito. A respectful, classy, well-off gentleman who is the leader of a group known as the Unsolvables. They take on cold cases and solve them using advanced modern-day technology, and with additional funding from Elijah, they follow up on more leads. They just discovered the identity of a serial killer who's never caught. So breaking news, the identity of the Tooth Fairy killer is revealed, Walter Kenny. The MO of his last victim, Rosalia Davalos, were eerily similar to that of his previous victims, especially since the specific tooth was the one that was the most damaged and seemed like it was almost pulled out. And also at the time, this was the first one in 10 years, so in present time, one of the Unsolvables thought there could be a connection. Walter Kennedy became a prime suspect in realizing how old a Tooth Fairy killer would have to be and checking the retirement homes in the area. Walter came out to be one of the names that stayed in a retirement home and had been from Oregon. After looking into his past, they had seen the abuse from his mother and how he lost his tooth. They contacted his son, and he had been holding on to his belongings from the shed and kept them in his basement. Eventually, investigators found a pair of pliers with old blood that matched 3 victims, so that's how they broke the case. December is a tough month in Miami, especially for Angel Batista. The 10-year anniversary of Maria LaGuardia's death is coming up. Angel still feels some sort of way about it. Every year, he visits her memorial bench and cleans it up as best he can, and then goes to her grave to drop off some flowers. He is now captain, and not only is that on his mind, but there have been a series of murders going on in Miami. Very brutal murders in Bayshore Park, which leads to a nickname, the Bayshore Park Bludgeoner. That's pretty much where Angel is in life right now. Now, Captain Matthews is dying and calls Angel to come talk to him. They formed a sort of a relationship over the years, and Angel shows up where they talk about life and such. Among Dexter fans, there have always been a theory that Captain Matthews knew or suspected Dexter of being the Bay Harbor Butcher, and this version confirms it. With the anniversary of Maria's death coming up, it causes Matthews to look back on his regrets, and he feels guilty because he always suspected Dexter. He tells Angel that as soon as he heard Maria was murdered, he immediately thought of Dexter. He went over the autopsy report and noticed that both Maria and Hector Estrada had needle marks on their necks. He talked to one of the officers who had been with Maria staking out the ports and reported that when making their way into the shipping container, it had been covered in plastic and a chainsaw was left running. He decided to run a talk screen on Maria, nothing showed up. Then he ran one on Hector and there ended up being small trace amounts of M99. He knew it was Dexter but decided to turn the other cheek and bury this all deep. After realizing what happened, it became one of the main reasons he called Vogel, so she can keep an eye on Dexter. After Dexter, Deborah, and Vogel died, Matthews began to feel guilty, and he doesn't want to carry that to his grave, which is why he's telling Angel, because he is the most honest and moral man he's ever met. Angel is in shock, and the scene ends with him contemplating everything he's ever known. The body that was talked about on the TV that was found in Delaware is that of a decomposed head. Investigators use dental records to confirm the ID of the body. They get a match, and the head belongs to Arthur Mitchell. You see, after Dexter killed and threw Trinity into the bay, the bag that contained his head got stopped and managed to go into a riverbank in Fishing Creek, Delaware. Investigators are quick to realize that there is an open wound on his cheek, just like the victims of the Bay Harbor Butcher, and in fact the method of killing seems to align with that of the Bay Harbor Butcher killings. But only investigators know that so far. As more information about Trinity is revealed, you see a camera move back to the TV. A man is breathing heavily with blood all over his clothes and a hammer in his hand. Police lights flash and are visible through the curtain-covered window. You hear a knock at the door. "Open up, we have a warrant for your arrest." Some time goes by with silence as a man is undressing from his blood-covered clothes. Then you hear the last line of the first episode, which is, "Jonah Mitchell, open up." And that's episode 1. Episode 2 starts off with the song Laughing by the Guess Who, with overlapping reports of Arthur Mitchell's remains found, as well as the Bayshore Park bludgeoner being caught. A familiar face is shown, Jonah Mitchell. A close-up shot of him taking it all in, admiring the beauty around him. The tropical palm trees, the salty taste of the ocean, the warm hug of the sun, and the light breeze of freedom in the air. Then as the camera moves back, you see him under arrest and being escorted to the police. He's been in Miami for a while. Quinn is shown to be the one interviewing, and Angel's watching from the window. Jonah and Quinn talk about his mother's death and a series of bludgeoning matching Trinity's MO, as well as Jonah's wife being murdered the same way 8 years prior in Nebraska. Jonah was suspected at first, but he had an alibi that checked out. Jonah was on record for saying his father killed his mother. Quinn tells him that it's impossible because his father's remains were just found. The body's decomposition is consistent with that of a body that has been rotting for 12 years. Jonah confesses that he killed his mother. He says, "I couldn't forgive myself like he told me to. I couldn't do that because I enjoyed it." Quinn tells him he's a good kid and asks why he threw it all away. Why'd he kill all those men? Jonah responds by saying he knew his father was killed and that he was mad he wasn't the one that killed him. So he took it out on those men pretending they were his father. Quinn asks how he knew his father was killed, and Jonah tells him because the man who killed him came to me and told me he did it. Jonah scoffs and then says, "I wish I could have done it myself, but I'm glad he did it." Quinn asks him, "Who are you talking about?" And Jonah asks for the cameras to be turned off. After some bargaining, the cameras are off. Quinn asks him who. Jonah looks at him and says, "Dexter Morgan." Angel is now even more shocked listening to this. "Dexter Morgan came to see me in Nebraska. He broke into my house, and when I came home, he was doing some forensic stuff. He told me he knew for a fact that Trinity didn't kill anyone in this house. When I asked him how he knew, he told me it's because he killed Trinity himself." Quinn is freaking out and asks him why he didn't tell us before. "Well, Dexter died years ago. My dad has just been found. I think the world owes Dexter something for taking out the trash." Jonah responds by saying, "When you came to see me in that store, I did recognize that man. He came over now and then before my dad was ever exposed. He even helped protect me from my dad. Told us his name was Cal Butler. I think he was vetting my dad before he killed him. Y'all came to raid our house, and remember he was already there? That's because he came looking for my dad." After hearing what Matthew said and now Jonah, Angel realizes there's a whole new development, but he doesn't have any proof. He's captain now and can't just reopen an investigation without having a reason to do so. But maybe he can prove that James Dokes wasn't the Bay Harbor Butcher. Angel gets a visit from Elijah and they talk. Elijah heard about Trinity's remains being found and how Jonah followed in his father's footsteps. He tells Angel that Trinity's remains and his death seem to align with the butcher's MO, the victim type, the injection mark, the disposal of the body. Elijah even says he never believed Dokes to be the real killer. His team followed the case and some of the things didn't add up, and over the years even heard theories that the real butcher could be out there. Angel wants to prove that Dokes wasn't the real butcher, and Elijah agrees to keep it under wraps and to consult with Angel. Angel and Quinn start talking, and Quinn brings up that he hired an agent to look after Dexter, and he found some incriminating photos. They're all gone now, but Quinn saw the photos, and now thinks it all lines up. News spreads of Trinity to Portland. Dexter decides to lay low and avoid being connected to Trinity. Most news reports are talking about the death of Trinity and his killer son. Nothing big has been said about Rita or Dexter. Dexter skips work and follows the crime scene. The new victim of the dollmaker has just been found, and he looks at the crime scene and his lizard braid starts to canvass the area. The wounds look more impactful and slow, which could indicate that the kill was personal, and the killer might be around to visit because that's something killers do. He looks to see a man, and it ends up being Jeffrey Naples. He doesn't stick around too long and ends up leaving in his fancy car. Elijah tells Angel that he needs to get into the BHP files, and Angel tells him that the FBI has all those files. Elijah responds by saying him and the FBI aren't very fond of each other because Elijah's son wrote an expose article on them that went viral. Angel says, "I do have someone that can get us in," and then cut. The next scene shows Masuka. He's now part of the FBI forensic team, and him and Angel start to catch up. They get the files and Angel hands them to Elijah. Elijah's looking into the Bay Harbor victims. His team look into his MO and see that a year before the BHP case, there was one victim that fit the butcher's MO, but wasn't included in the official victims claimed by the butcher. That person being Valerie Castillo. She was injected with N99, had a cut on her cheek, and since there was no blood on the RV carpet, there had to have been plastic wrap covering the vehicle. Jorge Castillo was the killer named in the case, but was never brought in. Jorge fit the butcher's victim type. And something that's very interesting is that Jorge never had a DEA license to acquire the M99. Elijah then looks into James Dokes and realizes that James never had a boat. Even though the boat and the bay was found years later, James never had the amount of money that boat would cost taken out of his credit or debit cards. No traces of money being pulled out or a loan pulled out to buy a boat in his name. His name wasn't in any of the list of employees who did have boats. Not only that, but James also never had a DEA license. James is on a special operative mission when some of the Bay Harbor killings took place. He starts to look into his last days alive and sees he got into an altercation with a man named Dexter Morgan that ended with Dokes getting fired. He looks into what he could have been in Haiti for and sees Lionel's website and remembers him from a photo with Dokes and him. He calls up Lionel and he follows up to confirm. Lionel says that he was asking for a secret lab to test the slides in order to have concrete evidence on the suspect he had. Elijah keeps going and sees that Dexter was on the list of officers who had a boat and moved his boat during the investigation. Dexter also worked on the Jorge Castillo case. He keeps going and sees that Dokes' funeral only consisted of his mother, his sisters, and Dexter too. Elijah finds that a little odd, so he looks more into Dexter. The name sounds familiar. He finds out his wife was the last victim of the Trinity killer. Elijah calls Angel and tells him, well, one thing is for sure, Dokes is not the Bay Harbor Butcher. Dexter's at the housewarming party, and it's much more bigger than he anticipated. He meets a lot of people and kind of pokes fun at Joseph for not having a house this nice. Joseph's nephew comes to introduce himself, and Dexter recognizes the man as Jeffrey Naples. We find out that Jeffrey is a general surgeon, which is why he has a big house and a fancy car, so Dexter excuses himself to the bathroom. He starts to snoop around and he goes through different unoccupied rooms. He finds a room for storage and sees a couple boxes. There are a couple framed photos and a lot of them are smashed with glass all over the floor. He sees a vintage picture of a man Dexter once killed, Walter Kenny. Dexter has Joseph come over and they get drunk. He uses this moment to extract info about who Jeffrey is. Dexter presses Joseph hard and he ends up telling the truth. Jeffrey Naples is really Jeffrey Kenny, the son of the Tooth Fairy killer. What are the odds that a serial killer who terrorized Portland, Oregon decades ago has a son who follows in his footsteps? He changed his name to Naples, which is his mother's maiden name, and Jeffrey ended up losing his daughter. She loved dolls, and this year she would have been 16. Jeffrey clearly has lost his mind and is trying to inflict the same pain on others, and also thinks his victims are his daughter. Dex drops him off and starts tailgating Jeffrey, and Jeffrey notices. He gets furious and talks to Joseph, where we get a scene to show how sadistic he really is, breaking his bone without any indication he feels any remorse for hurting his uncle. He ends up hurting Joseph to the point of needing the hospital. Dexter and Jeffrey begin to have a cat and mouse game. Now Elijah brings up that in the Trinity case, Stan Bodry had evidence and DNA that matched Trinity in his home and truck, even a picture of Christine and Lundy's Trinity books. Except when tested against Stan's actual DNA, it wasn't a match. Almost like it was planted. But who could have done that? Maybe a forensic specialist who worked on other cases. Could explain Dokes' fingerprints on the weapons the FBI found. Dexter worked the Bay Harbor Butcher case and the Stan Bodry case. Like other cases where killers went missing, Jorge Castillo, Benny Gomez, and Lil Chino. Angel tells Elijah about LaGuardia and the unsolvables try and find any evidence to confirm she was killed by Dexter. They see she had signed off to free the man who officially killed her, Hector Estrada. Matthew gives Angel the forensic report that confirmed what he told him earlier in the season. He also tells Angel that Brian Moser was Dexter's brother. Hector Estrada had killed their mother and that's why they came out like that. Maria was suspicious of Dex and Deb, so Angel and Elijah look into both. They end up coming across a video of Deborah with the gas can. They start to think that maybe she could have been his accomplice, so they look into her last days. The brain surgeon shot Deborah and killed Marshall Clayton. They look into Elway since he had employed Deborah and was connected to Marshall. Batista and Elijah make their way to Elway. He tells him that Deborah was good and never suspected anything of her. It was her brother he suspected. They talk about Hannah McKay and their last encounter. And he says she was on the bus with the boy, Dexter's kid, Harry. And Angel's like, why did she have Harrison? And he tells him, well, it looks like they were trying to go live happily ever after in Argentina. And they ask, what happened? How'd she get away? He tells him, she stuck a needle to my knee and I ended up passing out for a couple hours. Not my best moment. Told me it was horse tranquilizer, but it wasn't. And they ask, what do you mean it wasn't? And then he says, well, when someone who's known for poisoning people sticks a needle in you, I think that warrants paranoia and I need to check what it is. I had my buddy test me to make sure it wasn't some virus. He said it was something called M99. Both Angel and Elijah light up. M99? Elijah turns to Angel and asks him, hey Angel, how does someone without a medical license acquire M99? And Batista says, I don't know Elijah, maybe because her boyfriend had a ready supply of them. And they both go to check that list again. They get a list that shows any M99 buyers from the last 30 years. And even though Dexter deleted the alias on Masuka's computer, it was just on Masuka's computer. So when they get a new one, it actually shows Patrick Bateman and it kind of leads them to Dexter. And even in the show, Dexter says if they ever find the alias, it'll lead them straight back to him. So that's what happens. They launch a manhunt in Argentina for Hannah McKay, and soon enough they find her and Harrison. He wouldn't be this popular or confident kid though. Since Hannah was a fugitive, she'd keep Harrison homeschooled and hidden most of his life, which prompted him to be reserved and anxious. They extradite Hannah and Harrison and threaten Hannah with jail time for kidnapping and fleeing the country as a fugitive. Hannah gets interrogated about Dexter and if she knew he was a killer, and that if she didn't tell them something, Harrison would be put in foster care. Eventually, she wants to protect this kid who she now sees as her son, so she confesses to the DEA license and the killings. Hannah gets arrested and Harrison is left in the waiting room by himself. Angel sees this and feels guilty. He goes to Elijah and asks him to find the specific person for him. Angel takes Harrison to a safe house and talks to him for a while. A couple days pass and Elijah found the person that Angel asked him to find. She arrives at that safe house and she had brought someone with her. It's Aster and Cody. Their grandparents died a few years back, and now they live together since they're all each other have. They've always wondered what happened to Harrison, and now Aster decides to take him in and look after him. Aster is also on her way to becoming a cop, and Cody's a janitor, but he's in law school to be a lawyer. Dexter ends up tricking Jeffrey into meeting him, and they have a fight. Dexter uses some advanced jiu-jitsu that Dokes was talking about in Season 2. He renders Jeffrey unconscious and discovers his basement, the same room we first saw Jeffrey in the very beginning. He looks around to see the dolls wearing his victims' faces, with pictures everywhere. Dexter uses Jeffrey's own kill tools to kill him. They have a great scene where they're both yelling at each other, and Dexter tells him he killed Walter. Jeffrey begins crying and eventually starts laughing. At this point, he accepts his death and thanks Dexter for doing so. Dexter takes his blood and finally has one last empty blood slide in his box. He then kills Jeffrey and throws his remains in the Columbia River by the airport. He goes home and stares at the blood slide, feeling content and happy. He then puts the slide in his false bottom closet. Excitedly, he tells Brian and Dokes that he can't wait till his next kill. Although they don't have a mountain of evidence tying the killings to Dexter, it's still enough to clear Dokes' name, so they do so and publish the findings. They don't outright say Dexter is the Bay Harbor Butcher, but they make it known that he is the prime suspect. While Joseph is in the hospital, he sees Dexter on the screen and calls him up. Dexter turns on the channel and starts panicking at the headline: Prime suspect in the Bay Harbor Butcher case, Dexter Morgan. Dexter is exposed. Since Angel and Elijah believed Dexter was dead, they publish the findings. Dexter goes into the room to get his things. Then he hears a headline: Killer brother and sister duo. And he stops. Comes out of the room and goes into the living room to see what's going on. They're playing a video of Deborah. Deborah is now being seen as a killer who helped her monstrous brother. Dexter's world starts to fall apart. Now the consequences of his actions are affecting how she's being remembered. A person who was truly innocent is now seen as a monster. Dexter has ruined her life, made her compromise everything about herself, indirectly got her killed, made her one of his victims, and is now ruining the way she is being remembered. He needs to make amends. He needs to clear his sister from the crimes he committed. Deborah wasn't perfect, but she was innocent, and was the first person he felt real love for. He looks at his room and sees the real Deborah. Her face is now shown, and her eyes are tearing up. Dexter isn't going to run anymore. Dexter decides to turn himself in. Then we get a scene where Elijah and Angel are celebrating, but Angel doesn't feel like he's in the mood to celebrate. Elijah asks Angel, "You wish you can bring him to justice, huh?" He responds with saying, "Elijah, he was my friend. He framed an innocent man. He killed dozens. His signature was killing people who deserved it. But Maria didn't deserve it. Dokes didn't deserve to be ostracized by the world for crimes he didn't commit. After everything he's done, I think he deserves to die. Just wish I could have brought him in myself." He then recalls that moment in Season 2 where Dexter says to Angel that if there was anybody he could be like, it would be him. Dexter is shown at the Portland Police Department. He goes up to the receptionist while the news is playing, and they're talking about him. He nods his head over to the TV, and the receptionist says, "Oh shit." Dexter is now handcuffed to the table in an interrogation room, and the officer has been trying to get him to talk. The officer says, "You're not gonna talk, huh?" "I'll talk, just not to you." Then cut. You see a bedroom and hear a phone ring. It's picked up and then bam. Angel gets up saying he's on his way. Elijah and Angel get on a plane to Portland. The house theme song plays as they get off the plane. They make their way to the police station. Overhead shot of the SUV making its way to the Portland Police Department. As they get to the police station, everything's in slow motion as they're getting ready to be brought in. They are in the hallway that leads to the interrogation room. In slow motion, the door opens, and you see a glimpse of Dexter. He has his back facing the door. Then cuts to a close-up of Angel and Elijah walking to what lies ahead. You hear Angel's heart beating 1,000 miles per hour. The camera follows you from behind now. As he makes his way to the other side of the table in order to come face to face with the devil himself. Dexter looks up at him to say, "Hi, Angel," and smiles at him. Then a wide shot of the both face to face once again. Then the episode ends right there. We pick up right where we left off. Dexter asks for a alone time with Angel, and Elijah agrees. Angel and Dexter get to talking. Angel tries to get him to confess, but Dexter decides to bargain. He says, "I have evidence that will tie me to the killings, and I'll give you a confession. I just need 2 favors. Angel doesn't want to budge, but he does so he asks, "What are the favors?" Dexter says, "Number 1, you tell your friend to talk to the press and clear Deborah's name. She never knew, she didn't have anything to do with this. If she knew, she would have put me in jail with the other monsters." Angel, knowing Deborah, agrees with that. "I know I'll get the death penalty. So I need this last favor from you. When they kill me, I need Harrison to be there to see it. Angel asks him why. Dex says he experienced what I did. I've seen sons take after their fathers. I need my last moments to scare him. I need him to know what happens to a monster. Angel agrees. Dexter then confesses and gives him the location of Jeffrey Naples' body as well as the blood slide. This murder and his confession is enough to convict him of the crime as it fits the MO. Dexter is extradited to Florida where he awaits trial. The case is #1 on trending worldwide. We get a court scene where Dexter is to be sentenced. A young Mexican woman is the judge of this case. They begin talking about how he evaded the police, the people he murdered, and how he was able to keep doing these killings without any of the bodies washing ashore, aside from Trinity. He reveals his dumping grounds changed to the Gulf Stream. They ask when this changed. He tells them during the investigation he did so, and that little Chino was his first victim to go to his new dumping ground. We find out later that the judge is the little girl whose family was killed by little Chino. The world wants Dexter to be free since he killed so many bad people. The Tooth Fairy killer, the Trinity killer, the Doomsday killer, all those guys. Then he takes responsibility for killing LaGuardia, Dokes, and the other innocent people he killed. This sits weird with viewers around the world, a man with the code who broke it for selfish reasons. Eventually Dexter is sentenced to death by lethal injection. The last episode, 2 years have gone by, and now Dexter's death is awaiting. He's done countless interviews about his lust for killing, how his brain works, and his MO, which would also be part of the promotion leading up to after the last episode. Like, imagine watching a video about Dexter under arrest talking about his crimes. That'd be kind of cool. We see Dexter and Harrison reunite, and they have been doing so over the past 2 years, as well as Aster and Cody. She forgave him after hearing he had killed Trinity. It had brought her some sort of peace. His last day is tomorrow. Dexter's getting ready to be put down. Dexter makes it to a small room where he's set to be put to death. A curtain over a window opens and he sees Harrison, Aster, Cody, Angel, Elijah, as well as his old peers, like Masuka, Quinn, all those other guys. Then we get his final voiceover. And in my last moments, the world sees me for who I truly am. And maybe that's all I've ever really wanted. A divided world on where I stand. Some think of me as a murderous monster, but others think there's a method to my madness. This feels liberating. Peaceful. I don't believe in heaven or hell, but if I did, where I'm going is soon to be decided. I just wish I could stay for my son. Watch him grow, watch him prosper, watch him be the person I long to be, because I know he's nothing like me. I am who I am. I am Dexter. The priest then asks Dexter if he has any last words. Dexter looks at Harrison, Aster, and Cody and speaks to them. I'm sorry for everything I've done to you. I'm sorry for what I am. Take care of each other. I love you guys. Dexter sees Rita's ghost behind Harrison, as well as Deb and Harry. He smiles with tears in his eyes. The needle punctures his vein too hard and blood rushes down his arm. He looks down his arm to watch the blood flow. The needle fills his body with poison. He looks up from his arm to the glass in front of him. Now the people that were there are no longer there. Now all he sees in the seats watching him are all of his victims. You can hear Dexter's heartbeat starting to fade. Cut to a close-up of Dexter. As he takes his last breath, the camera moves back to the window. What looked like a small room has now transformed into a long hallway. The camera is still moving back as the victims are in rows of seats on both sides of the screen. All 136 victims. The camera reaches the last row, then cuts to black. Just like Dexter's life, it's all over now. And that's my pitch. Call me cocky, but I think that's way better than what we got in New Blood. I don't know. I think it's so stupid that the whole promotion of New Blood was you can hide from your past, but you can't run away. And then in the end, Dexter ran away. I feel kind of stupid saying this, but let's like it, share it. Let's try and get Showtime to see this. I think it'd be really cool if Showtime was like, you know what, let's just redo it like this way because this one seems way better. Hopefully my timeline makes sense, but I think I did mess up a little, not gonna lie. I'm currently really busy with these 2 projects, my album and my documentary about the album. Those are 2 projects that I'm very, very passionate about, and it's very important to me, so I just want to make sure they're perfect before I release them. Hopefully when my album drops, you guys will listen to it and watch the documentary that goes with it, and that way you're able to appreciate the album a little bit more. So look out for both of those projects coming up. But that's gonna do it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and make sure to leave your feedback in the comments, and be sure to give me a rating on how my story was. So yeah, I look forward to seeing that, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Until then, stay safe, keep it real, and peace out.